Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to the Daily Drop-In Morning Show with the Teach Better team, where we are live every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern. I am thrilled to say happy Tuesday to all of you. You know I love Tuesdays. It is May 3rd. I almost said Monday, May 3rd. Clearly it's not. It's Tuesday, May 3rd. And we have a ton in store for this morning's conversation. We have Teacher Appreciation Week, which we're going to continue to celebrate. We have those 22 giveaways for 2022. We also have a good news article, big celebrations today, and a new face that we're bringing onto the Daily Drop-In Show that I have been waiting for months for you to meet her. So we'll be right back. As you get started, please go fill up your coffee, say good morning in the comments, and we cannot wait to kick off your morning. Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, and we are so appreciative that you are tuning into the Daily Drop-In as we currently stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And a special shout out to those of you who are listening on the Teach Better Talk podcast. Even though you're not live with us, we really, really appreciate you. Good morning. We have a new face on Daily Drop-In this morning. Would you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Sabba. I am the founder of a new company that I just launched in January called Designing Schools. And, started my career as a high school history teacher and, kind of just made my way into a lot of different paths from there.
It's going to be so fun for us to discuss because we have a mutual friend that is like on a pedestal here in the Teach Better community. Dr. Neil Gupta is who originally connected us. And I have to joke around a little bit about that because, first of all, anybody that I meet through Dr. Neil Gupta is just a wonderful contact. But he tried to connect us, I feel like, for months. I kept hearing about your name. And he's like, oh, I have to introduce you. And finally, we were able to meet just a few months ago. So I'm thrilled to be able to now bring you onto the show and introduce you to our Teach Better family here.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It's so funny because I had been messaging with him in like Voxer and he was like, your energy. He's like, you too, you've just got to meet. You've got to meet. He's like, so yes, I always appreciate people who are connecting great people. I feel like that's how I meet, honestly, all the great people I know. I rarely get to meet them in real life unless there's a conference, but it's crazy how we get to connect with each other.
Well, I think that we need to try and trick you to come to the Teach Better conference in October so our whole network can meet you in person. But if regardless of that, I think our virtual connections that we can make through those of us in our community who are eager to connect those dots, right? Introduce you to people is so valuable. How did you originally connect with Neil?
Okay, I feel like that is the $1 million question for anybody you meet online. It is so hard to remember. You literally, it's so funny. You meet people and you feel like you know them so well. And then you're like, but how do you guys know each other? And it's like, oh, like, I don't remember. It's literally just through Twitter is going to, what I feel like it's the easiest is probably going to come down to.
That's fair enough. And Twitter is a great platform. I know a lot of our community are active on Twitter, and it's really powerful, I think, to remind ourselves and remind our community that a virtual connection by following someone on Twitter or retweeting a message they share or engaging in a Twitter chat can actually foster incredible long-term professional relationships. I mean, even our Teach Better team, a lot of us all met on Twitter initially. It's so powerful that those connections can kind of flourish into something bigger. So when you originally were getting into, obviously you're working with educators, a lot of work you're doing. Tell us a little bit about the specifics and how you got into this role.
Oh gosh. I feel like, I feel like this is going to be a running theme. And I really hope that running theme becomes a takeaway for a lot of people. I think it really just comes down to when you are able to find spaces where you can practice things that you're interested in and you can find other people who are also interested in those things, the synergy that creates opens up the door to these opportunities. I was really influenced. I feel like over the past decade, I don't go a day without mentioning the book Lynchpin by Seth Godin. And it's fascinating because it really like, so when I graduated in 2007, I always say I was like the opposite person. I was somebody who like did not really know about much about the internet. I didn't really understand a lot of like technology or emerging trends. But once I started realizing like, oh, so like you can go on the internet, you can share your work, you can do what Seth Godin calls like find what is really unique about you and just share it out with the world, life changes. And that's kind of literally what happened to me. I was like graduated during the recession as a new teacher and really kind of struggled for the first 4 or 5 years, like constant layoff notices and just like not really like finding my like tribe and my community in a school or a district. And when I started making that shift, not only did I kind of get introduced to more opportunities like in person, that's when I really started getting into like technology use in the classroom and one-to-one programs and things like that, that I also joined Twitter and started meeting so many other people doing incredible things. I mean, just take me and you and as an example sitting here today. You know, it's like somebody introduces you, it's like you connect together around mutual interests, one thing leads to another, and that's literally how the door opens. And so just that connection between, one of my strengths was being able to think about how to use technology in the classroom. And so making that connection for myself as a teacher and then finding out that like, oh, there's like conferences you can go to and there's like events you can be a part of. Like what? There's like an entire community online. That is really what I would say kind of shifted like just my entire world, but more importantly, the people that I got to meet as a result of that.
Mm. No, it's so interesting that when we find like-minded individuals, or at least individuals that are passionate about things that we also are passionate about, how that really can develop our understanding of that topic, of course, but also our connection to the topic. It really, allows us to evolve as human beings, which I think is so powerful. When it comes to obviously technology in the classroom, that's surely evolved over the last few years. What's been your thoughts on that?
You know, I'll tell you my first thought on that because I most recently I left Apple in November, but it's fascinating to me thinking back to when I first started in like 2010, and I also started with iPads. We started with iPads, a little bit of Chromebooks, a little bit of everything. But it's fascinating when you think back over the last decade and you look at just some of our session topics and you just look at some of the things that we're doing, like I just feel like it's a very interesting question to pause and ask yourself, how has my use of technology evolved over the last decade? Not even 10 years. Like I think it's important to say the word decade because it just sounds so much more dramatic. But I feel like, that's one of the things I would say I see is like, are we really challenging ourselves to really think about new ways of working? And I think that's where we're probably going to begin to see the biggest shift. And I think especially when I think about like teachers, I think about like the ways in which we're working, the amount of stress and the amount of like impossible like overload of tasks that I think are just placed upon, teachers, leaders, I mean, and obviously students as a byproduct of that as well. I think if we don't step back and start really thinking about people and how can we really change the way people are working, like what do people really want, right? That's like my obsession with design thinking coming through now. But like if we don't start with people and what are people really struggling with and how are we going to fix that using the technology we have, it's I just feel like it's a heavy lift to try to merge an old world and a new world together and try to do all of those pieces at once. And so I really think, like I tweeted this yesterday, like the best thing you can probably do for Teacher Appreciation Week is really take a step back and listen to people, find out what they're struggling with, and then actually find solutions. Like use structures and frameworks to walk yourself through things that seem overwhelming, that seem challenging, but there are frameworks that can help you really navigate those conversations to where you'd be so surprised sometimes by the outcomes that that you get as a result.
Sabba, I want to get into so many different pieces of what you just shared, and I want to kind of dive into that in our brainstorming segment because I know that there are a lot of pieces that we can break down together. But one of the things I know our community would be interested in is hearing that at the very beginning of your story, you were like, oh, when I left Apple. And it's interesting. I've been struggling with this, and I wasn't planning on bringing this up on the show necessarily, but I've been hearing a lot of educators discussing that they feel, a little lost this year. Will they stay in the classroom next year? Will they go seek something else? And so for the sake of interest, just in case somebody in our community says, ooh, Apple, what's that like? Would you mind taking us through? I mean, you obviously graduated, you went into the teaching profession, and then you did choose to do some other things. And while I personally still know that you are an educator and you are constantly educating all day, every day, and yet your student body may have changed, would you mind sharing just snippets of your experience either making that decision and or what it was like working for a big organization that many of us, well-respected organization like Apple, and then obviously now working in the space that you are. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that before we get too far into our conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's interesting is, and I feel like this can go for any situation, I don't want to say it's not so much like the grass is always greener on the other side, but I think it's always really important to just understand first and foremost your own goals. And when I look back over the last 10 years, I feel like a lot of what happened to me happened by accident. It's not that I planned something. It's not that I tried to get into something or somewhere. It just became this really fascinating, I'm just going to share what I love doing. The people that you meet create opportunities that you get access to. And I feel like I always when I say my about me now, I literally do it using a social media timeline, because you see such a distinct difference between the work I was doing before I was on Twitter and the work I was doing after. And so I say that to preface this with, no matter what your situation is, the number one thing you can be doing for yourself is showcasing your work. What are you doing? How are you doing it? What is happening in your current situation? Because there is no credibility like the one that comes from being in the space that you're in, just because of the examples that you have. That alone, when you're working with students, every single day, you have an interesting story, you have an interesting example, you have an interesting comment, a tweet, or something. And so I really encourage people to leverage that and to really kind of share and create that foundation for themselves. Second, I would always say, and I think this honestly goes for any organization, at the end of the day, every single organization has an agenda of their own, right? They have an objective they need to meet, they have a product they are trying to sell. And a lot of times I think we put a lot of pressure on education, like, why have we not evolved? Why have we not done this? Why have we not done that? I think it's also really important to note that a lot of companies have not evolved either. And you see a really huge shift between the ones that have and the ones that haven't. I always look to, there's a company called Mural, and I love, 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 the way in which they're helping people think differently about ways of work. And so I would say sometimes when you join a company, you can become a little isolated now in that area or that perspective. And that's just something that I think is important to note and be ready to be okay with. I think a lot of people have individual brands, have individual interests. And I think it's just a good question to ask if you are thinking about making that transition. Is this something that I'll still be able to do? Is this something I'll still be able to pursue? So it's such a hard question to answer. There is no right or wrong answer. The one I always tell people is really make sure you identify your goals, because being frustrated in one situation doesn't necessarily mean that moving into another one is going to eliminate the frustration. It may just move different pieces around for you. I also think it's important to think about things from a 5-year timeline. So when I joined, one of the reasons when I joined Apple that I wanted to was I wanted to do my doctorate. And I knew that in the current situation, the current job that I had, I loved it so, so, so much, but I was working around the clock and there just would have been absolutely no way. And so when I joined there, it was just an opportunity to be able to take a step back, kind of reevaluate just where I wanted to go next, some of the things that I wanted to do, and things like that. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I have a slight bit of hesitation in telling somebody yeah, this is amazing and this is what you should do, because I mean, I don't know that that was my experience. And so I just think just really understand your goals. And I think even when you're getting advice from people, always get advice from the lens of always listen for, are people asking you questions? Because a lot of people will jump in and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. And like, oh my God, yes, you should do it. And like, I love it. And me. But if somebody's not pausing to ask you, okay, well, tell me how you would respond in this situation. Tell me how you feel about being in a situation like this. I would back off. And I think that goes for advice in most situations. But I think just, yeah, there are different problems, different areas. That doesn't change. It's just which battle do you want to fight, and where do you want to choose it, and where do you want to play it, and what do you want to do?
No, Sabba, that's exactly why I asked you that question, because I really appreciate your honesty and I really appreciate your advice. It's been really relevant in my life over the last, I want to say 5 days, 7 days of, conversations that I'm having with educators evolving into, I don't know if the classroom's right for me. I don't know if the public school system's right for me. Where do I go next and what can I do? And I really, really value your perspective of saying, yes, there might be other options, but truly knowing what you want and what your goals are and what you're looking to accomplish is the first step, because every move you make has pros and cons, and so ensuring that you're doing what's best for you personally is very important. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. I think that's really wonderful advice for the educators, at least that I've been speaking with. So I really, really appreciate it.
Can I add one more thing to that really quickly? So I would
Sure.
also say, just along, because you made me remember this, I feel like educators do not give them, like, we forget how many skills we have and how applicable those skills are in so many different areas beyond just the few tech companies that we're using in our classroom. Like, one of the biggest areas I really encourage people to think about is learning and development. Like, you are like a pedagogical pro if you are like in education, but like, again, like, what is it, Derek Sivers, like, what's obvious to you is so unique to others. But because you're planning lessons day in and day out and you're just teaching people, I think we often lose sight of the skill and the science and the art behind that. And so there are just a lot of different areas you can apply those skills and strengths to. And yeah, I mean, and I think, it's really a shame. Like, one of the biggest projects, like my research and just like the documentary that I'm working on, is really all about, like, what do I wish I would have had as a teacher so that I wouldn't have had to have made the decision that I did? Because at the end of the day, when I look back at what I do, like, I love teaching, and there are so many different areas where you can apply that. And so, if schools don't figure out quickly, they're going to end up losing their best and brightest, to like all these other places, which would be a shame. But yeah, I just wanted to tell people, like, you probably have a lot more talent than you realize. And so digging into that, I think, is a really important thing to do.
So many good nuggets here. I hope if you're listening and this topic resonates with you, please know that you can always reach out to us here on screen or even just within the Teach Better team. We'd love to talk shop. I think there's so many different avenues that we have opportunities to take, and whether it is serving our 11-year-olds or serving a 5-year-old or serving a 17-year-old or changing the space that you're in, we'd love to be reflective partners with you in finding whatever is the best fit for you, because if nothing else, our Teach Better community really is committed to continuing to better our educators. And so whether that be by changing your role or changing your perspective, we are here to support you in that. So as you explore, Sabba, one of the things that we love to do in the morning is to document a moment of gratitude. And we use a app called Happy Feed to do this. It's been something we've been doing for the last 7 or 8 weeks. I say that because it feels like ages ago. We've been doing it every single morning. And what we love about being able to document our moments of gratitude is the opportunity to revisit those moments and be able to celebrate some happy times that we've had, especially here on the Daily Drop-In. So as I ask you bright and early this morning, something that you're grateful for, something that you're appreciative of, what comes to mind?
I feel like I would say, like, especially like if I had to say in this moment, I would say like my online community. Like, so I'm in Los Angeles and it's 4:20 in the morning. And I feel like there's nothing that could get me up at 4:20 in the morning other than coming to meet people in my online community and having these conversations. Like, I am just so energized by my online community. And I would say that would be what I'm so grateful for.
I'm so grateful that you not only joined us to share your insight, but also woke up so bright and early to join us. So I really appreciate it. We're going to transition here really quick. It's Tuesday, so we get straight into our brainstorm bank right away, and we have a lot to discuss. So we'll be right back. Good morning, everyone. If you are just joining us for the Daily Drop-In Morning Show with the Teach Better team, we'd love to say good morning to you. Welcome you into this incredible Tuesday. It is May 3rd, and we have already gotten into a lot of topics. So if you're just popping in right now, you'll definitely want to go back and make sure you catch the beginning of this episode. We are discussing so many things, but our theme this week is all about Teacher Appreciation Week. For those of you who maybe didn't catch yesterday's show, the Teach Better team is giving away 22 fabulous items for Teacher Appreciation Week for 2022. This is everything from free professional development for your school district all the way to life-size Jenga. So please head over to teachbetter.com/appreciation to make sure you apply for all the winnings you possibly can. And hopefully you win something very special in our Teach Better community. Sabba, we've gotten into so many different discussions that I want to revisit in our brainstorming segment. But one of the things is really getting your thoughts on Teacher Appreciation Week. What is either a memory of Teacher Appreciation Week or a thought that you have on this special week celebrating educators?
Oh, wow. Celebrating educator is like one that I experienced or one that I saw?
Sure, either.
All right. Because, I would say like, I feel like I feel like so many times that wow, this is going to be so honest. Like, I feel like so many times, honestly, I find them to be a little fluffy. And I think they don't always acknowledge the seriousness of what people are going through. I think, especially, like, I think, we always think that, like, oh, let's just have food and let's just do this and, let's do that. And I think maybe even, pre-pandemic, I think, again, I say honestly, I don't even think this is isolated to educators. I think this is just, so many industries. I think there's so many things we do, whether it's like the tech industry, thinking like, games and like cool chairs and things like that are going to matter. And I think one of the things people have realized in the past 2.5 years, especially, is that, wow, like there are things that mean a lot more to me, like my time, how I'm treated, the autonomy that I have, the flexibility that I have. And so I think, as we think about appreciation weeks and we think about the things that we're doing for people, I think one, first and foremost, moving away from this idea that it's a week. Like, I think that's, to me, like one of them. But I would say another one is just looking at what do people really need? And, are we asking them, like, are you designing Teacher Appreciation Week, like on your own and thinking like, oh, these are all the things that people are going to love, so let me do them? Or are you actually leaning in to ask people like, hey, if we are going to celebrate something during this one particular week, what is one thing I can do for you that would make you feel appreciated during this week the most? And so I think that's a really important one. And I think that's a little heavy in my mind right now because we just finished doing, as an urban district here in California, a really large one, and we just finished doing student empathy interviews. And it's fascinating when you take a moment to step back and actually ask people, like, what do you like? What do you not like? Like, what do you need? The answers are so different sometimes than the things that we think we need to be doing. And so I would say that would kind of be one. But I think, it's always really, really, really nice to have moments where those topics are highlighted and brought to the forefront so that we can have questions like these and so we can have conversations like these and so that people can be a little bit more. It's sometimes important to just take that step back, and sometimes like weeks that where, we have like weeks for things or days for things, I think just give you a moment to pause and then say like, okay, like what are we doing? What could we do? And how do things evolve moving forward?
I think that's a fabulous reminder. And as educators are thinking through ensuring that they're asking those questions to one another and that leadership teams are taking the time to ask those questions, we also can challenge our parents to ask those questions to continue to foster this whole school ecosystem that we have going on here. Sabba, how did you get into education? Why did you want to be a teacher? Were you influenced by the teachers that you had growing up?
I'm telling you, my whole life was just an accident. Like, So I moved from London when I was 10 and we moved to California, and school was just so different that I absolutely hated it. And I never really found my place again. Like I was a great student, but I just never really settled into American school here. And so when I was 16, I was in like an AP IB program. So I was doing great. I was like doing all the things. I actually left high school and went to community college. And when I went to community college, I got to take all these different classes in all these different areas, and introduction to education was one of them. And part of that was doing an internship at or like an observation at an elementary school and a high school. And so elementary school, I just had too many favorites. Like they were like, oh my God, you're so cute. I just had too many favorites. I was like, this is probably not a good idea. But when I went to high school, I was absolutely fascinated by the conversations about just being able to open up someone's world, being able to highlight something for somebody about them that they didn't see in themselves. And just, I'll never forget the look on the faces like that used to trigger. And so I was like, oh, I really like working with this age group. Like that's kind of fun. But I never really saw myself teaching something per se. And then I got an award one day for social science. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, you've taken all these social science classes and you've gotten this GPA. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. And it just so happened the next day, the University of California, Irvine had a table, like it was like college week or whatever. And I saw social science and I was like, oh, like I just got an award for that. And so I went over there and they're like, yeah, you can be a social science major and you can, it's a teaching credential and you can teach it. And so you always think history, right? When you think of like high school. And so, but the social sciences allow you to teach psych, sociology, like econ, like in fact, most people get a social science credential, not a history credential. And so I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Like I was just doing this internship. And so the pieces just kind of came together. I'm also not a standardized test taker. Like I refuse to go into any program that asks me to take a test. And so in the UCI social science program, you would do a portfolio and that waived the CSET. And there was no like GRE or anything. So I was like, okay, awesome, done. Like,
that's so funny. And so you were able to kind of stumble your way into finding your passion space. So where did you end up? What was the first job you ever had?
oh my God, the first job I ever had was so fantastic. It was a school where they merged English and history together and then math and science. And so I started teaching like with a teaching partner in like English. And so we merged like literature, history, and it was, right here in Southern California. And it was phenomenal. But then I got a layoff notice at the end of the year because the other thing that made it amazing was it was at small class sizes. So we were 20-1. And so obviously the first thing they did was increase class size. And I was like, wait, what? Nobody talked about this in my program.
No, it happens. But what an incredible experience that you were able to kind of like merge those topics together, work in such a progressive building and, get into the field that way. I mean, that's an awesome experience. And then you obviously found a passion for design thinking. Will you speak to that a little bit in case somebody in our community is hearing the term design thinking, but then isn't sure what that actually translates to in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to be really short because I can go on forever. But I feel like here's what I say. The first time I launched a 1-to-1, I did it at K-12. And while that school wouldn't say that I failed, I say I failed. And we failed because we started with technology first. Every single week it would be like, and not to anybody's fault, right? Like, again, you don't really get taught this stuff, but we started with like, oh my God, we're going to learn about this app. Like, oh, we're going to learn about this. And a big part of it was like, sometimes when you're so excited about something and you see the change, you are so excited to share that with somebody without recognizing what made you excited about it to begin with. You got excited because it solved a problem for you. It opened a door for you. It did something else. So it wasn't the app per se. The app was the outcome, but there was something below that. And the first time I launched a 1-to-1, I forgot the below part. And we started so much with the tech. And what happens? You lose a lot of people. And then the second time I had an opportunity to do that, against all by accident, it was in a higher education institution. And because that was not my space, so this did not happen on purpose, because it was not my space, and it was also a medical school, it was the Keck School of Medicine over at USC, I by default was I felt very out of place. So even though they had hired me as their director of innovative learning, they wanted to do the same things that were happening in K-12, bring that over to the med school space. I just was very like I need to listen and learn because like this is not my area. And that taught me the value of just empathy. And it just so happened at the same time I was at a ed camp and I was listening to a session for two first grade teachers from Design 39 campus. And they were talking about design thinking and how they use this design thinking process with their first graders. And even though I was in a graduate school program, hearing that design thinking process just really helped the pieces click for me, especially the empathy piece. What do you need? What are you seeing? Like just those questions. And I was like, oh my God, these questions can help me. And so when I went back and I started having one-on-ones with professors, I started asking them, so like, tell me about your class. Like what do you like about your class? What do you not like about your class? What do you wish you could do? That opened the door to just a completely different way of working. And so what ended up happening by default was it's not that I said I'm going to create that approach this time. I heard about this process. I tried it and the outcome was drastically different in terms of people's enthusiasm and ownership over the process. And I was just like, oh my God. And so it just sent me down a design thinking rabbit hole. Where can I get more frameworks? Where can I get more strategies? Where can I get more things? And I would say if there was one thing I had to share, I think so many times when we think about design thinking, we're always just kind of looking at it through the hexagons. How do I jump through those hexagons? Whereas a lot of people don't realize, like I always say, like there's a website called Session Lab, a Mural, amazing resource. They have so many templates. Any conversation you want to have, there is a template or a framework for it. And they are so critical because conversations that we're having when it comes to technology or change or reform or education or you name it are overwhelming. That if you try to have that conversation without a framework, you'll find yourself getting lost in conversation and sometimes like venting and sometimes like too much of a focus on the wrong topics. But frameworks will help you channel your ideas in the right way so that you'll be shocked by the outcome you even get at the end of like a 30, 50, 3-hour session. So that's kind of how I fell into design thinking, was like everything else by accident.
But I love that your challenge to our community is to go seek out these frameworks so they can allow us to be more critical, more strategic, and more deliberate in those conversations to ensure that we keep our focus on the solution element of creating whatever we're looking to foster, which I really, really appreciate. As we transition here with our good news and, kind of wrapping up our conversation here, Sabba, I would love to ensure that everyone here kind of hears your big passion, your soapbox topic. It feels like design thinking might be it, but if you had one message, one concept that you wanted to challenge our community to consider or further explore, what would you challenge them with?
To help kids find their strengths. And the one that I love the most, it's a website, it's called the Spark Type. And I mention it because it's free, but there's actually one that is a Thrively, actually one that is a lot more structured and designed for kids. I feel like the whole like theme of this story was how everything that happened to me. And honestly, I feel like we flipped the table and I asked you these questions, your story would be very similar. So many things that happen to people who love what they do happen by accident. And looking back, I just don't think that had to have been the case. I think if I had the opportunity as a student to really lean into my strengths and just even know what they were, I think you can become more strategic about the decisions that you make and the choices that you make and the pathways and opportunities that you then become exposed to. And so that would be my one thing, like just find some assessment like the Spark Type. And interestingly enough, the Spark Type was what put me over the edge when I decided to resign from Apple. I was a little unsure. Am I making the right decision? Am I not? I read my Spark Type and it was like somebody was just like writing what was in my head in a way that I wasn't able to articulate it myself. And so I think identifying your strengths, knowing what energizes you, knowing what you're good at is one of the best things anybody can do for anybody right now, child or adult.
So powerful. We'll be right back with our good news. morning, everyone. As we wrap up our conversation here on the Daily Drop-In, we have some good news for you. We have some celebrations, and we have a lot in store to make sure that we are kicking off your Tuesday right. Sabba, you have been able to add so much value in this conversation. So if our friends here in the Teach Better community are just popping in, I hope they go back and listen to your passion for design thinking and everything else that you've been able to share so far. Are you up for doing a little celebrating? Always? Okay, here we go. So for our holidays, there are always just some wacky holidays that we love to celebrate. I'd love to hear from you, Sabba, how you feel like we might be able to use these in the classroom or be able to use these to foster relationships with our colleagues. These are always opportunities that when you're walking down the hallway or you walk into, like the teacher's lounge, how can you use these as conversation starters, especially during Teacher Appreciation Week? Let's get those conversations flowing as a reminder that we do not need to do this job alone ever. And we definitely need to build those relationships. So first and foremost, celebrating that it's National Teacher Day. This makes sense. It is Teacher Appreciation Week. So all about the educators this week. It's also Constitution Memorial Day and National Chocolate Custard Day. Are you a chocolate custard fan?
I'm not a custard fan because I'm allergic to milk, but I love, love, love chocolate. So
okay, so we can incorporate that in. Celebrating also National Foster Care Day, which is so important. National Garden Meditation Day. Have you ever meditated in a garden before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, see, that could be something that we do. It's a little rainy where I live, but maybe it'll be sunny and beautiful where you're located. National Lumpy Rug Day. I didn't know that was a day that we could celebrate, but I do love a good fluffy rug. I don't know that I would go with lumpy being the description, but I guess I'm okay with that. Thoughts on a lumpy rug?
On a lumpy rug, it depends on how soft it is, right? Could be fun to kind of hang out on, right? Depending upon how soft it is.
Yeah, I think I like that mindset. Something interesting, I didn't know this is a holiday either. It's National Two Different Colored Shoes Day.
Ooh.
So getting dressed for your morning, throwing on two different colored shoes. These have really good Nike sneakers in this photo, but I could get on board with two different shoes today.
That is fun. Wow, I did not know all these days existed.
I know. Last but not least, it is James Brown Day. So I was really stuck on what our good news story was going to be. But because I see that it's James Brown's Day, we're going to do a few different highlights here. One is James Brown was an incredible musician. He's the godfather of soul, and he was originally from South Carolina. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. Gotta love anybody in that soul music. 89 years old today. The soul brother, number one, Mr. Dynamite. He's an incredible artist that I would definitely go check out if you're looking for some tunes today. But for good news, we'll change it up. Rather than celebrating just him on this incredible day, I thought that we would highlight some discounts and some things going on for Teacher Appreciation Week so that our community could take full advantage. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we've already mentioned that the Teach Better team is giving away 22 gifts for 2022, and you guys can sign up to win those over at teachbetter.com/appreciation. Make sure you go do that by the end of the week, by Friday, to make sure you win your incredible opportunities to win those goofy things that we're giving away here on the Teach Better family. Other deals, though, I think is really fun to be able to take advantage of. I know Staples is celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week. They're doing 20% back in rewards, 5% back in rewards for educators. So there's a lot of different elements that you could go look at for Staples. Office Depot is doing something. They have 2 discounts going on for Teacher Appreciation Week that they're getting 20% off. And so you can also get a $50 reward. So again, an opportunity there. Amazon is celebrating. Obviously, there's things going on for Mother's Day, which is at the end of the week. For those of you who needed that reminder, Mother's Day is coming at the end of the week. Dollar General has a teacher discount for 5% off. Xfinity, Michaels, and a few different other companies are also celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week, and it goes on and on and on, including Sonic is giving away free cheeseburgers. So if you're an educator this week, it might be worth doing a little Google search before you head into any store or restaurant to see if they are celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week. I know me personally, Sabba, that the Buffalo Wild Wings is doing a discount, and I'm all about going and getting some of their French fries. I really like their French fries.
I'm all about finding the ice cream places.
Ice cream places. Okay, wait, hold on. I could scroll through this list and see if I see anything. I know Barnes and Noble is doing free coffee. Is that a start?
Ooh, yeah.
What about Laffy Taffy? They're doing a fun giveaway for educators this week. Or Potbellies? Are you a Potbelly sandwich lover?
A little bit.
Oh, I found one. Freddy's Teacher Appreciation Week for a free Sunday.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So there's a lot. I'm looking at a list right now that I should just share with you. It was shared at US Today. And the title is Teacher Appreciation Week brings deals and freebies for educators. And so as you scroll through, I'm going to tell you, Sabba, I have not even skimmed the surface of all the things being given away to teachers this week. And I did just see another one that had to do with cookies. So free cookies.
Ooh, anything dessert. I shouldn't have been so restrictive to ice cream.
Yeah.
I should have said in all things dessert.
So this is the reminder that while Teacher Appreciation Week, I hope, is being celebrated within your own personal communities, also an opportunity to Google any deals that we can get this week as well for teachers. Definitely something to do a quick search or go to ustoday.com and check out all the list that they have there. Sabba, before we log off today, do you want to make sure that our friends can stay connected to you? I know earlier in this conversation, we had a few comments of people saying that they went and followed you on Twitter, but you're doing a lot on Instagram as well. So would you mind sharing how people can stay connected?
I always tell people to just go to the website, designingschools.org, and pick whatever you want. I feel like we all like consuming in different ways, and I create in many different ways. And so I feel like I'm a little bit different no matter where you go. So I usually just tell people, go to the website, designingschools.org, and just choose whatever you want.
I love it. That's an easy direction for all of us to be able to follow and then make that connection. I really appreciate you waking up so early to not only have a conversation with me, but celebrate other people being connected as well. I know you continue to emphasize this whole conversation, the value of meeting new people and applying our best foot forward as we are in this incredible field. So thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Friends, make sure to go follow our guests on the Daily Drop-In Show. Let us know if you're having any struggles connecting with them. We did send our email earlier on Monday morning to let you know the full lineup for this week, including how to connect with them on social media. So if you're needing to sign up for that email list, just direct message me and I'll make sure to add you. Happy Tuesday. We hope you have an incredible May 3rd, celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week. Don't forget to go apply for those 22 giveaways for 2022 at teachbetter.com/appreciation. And we'll see you all tomorrow morning for Daily Drop-In. Bye, friends.